we're getting ready to go live. So in fact, we probably are live now. Good morning. Try looking a little bit.
The Gabbert Solar Patrol program is a heliophysics program aimed at citizen scientists and K-12 students, both locally, nationally, and throughout the world. The goal of Gabbert Solar Patrol is to monitor active regions on the sun in order to understand how they're connected to explosive events that we categorize under space weather. Participants can remote in and actually control the telescope themselves. So a common observing mode with the Gabbert Solar Patrol is that we'll have classrooms actually operate the telescope themselves, collect some data, and then generate maps of what the sun looks like at radio frequencies. They're gaining a really unique experience that I think is really special to the Gabbert program. And that's the ability to walk through the scientific process from the very beginning, from the steps of collecting the data themselves, all the way to reducing that data and interpreting scientific results from their studies. I get excited anytime I get to operate a radio telescope, and so I really enjoy it when other people get to have that same opportunity and that same learning process.
Works for OG&E, low. And all the others in their 50s and getting ready to retire.
Okay. Well, welcome back, everybody. We are at the 2024 Astronomical League Conference in Overland Park, Kansas, and we are live with Mr. Lehman of the Kansas City Astronomical Society, and also with Kent Martz here from Explore Scientific. Kent, why don't you go ahead and introduce Mr. Lehman, and thank you for coming on to our program today and telling everybody about what's going on with the Astronomical Society of Kansas City.
Thank you, Scott, for getting us live. I'm Kent Martz with Explore Scientific. With me, I have Alan Lehman. He is the treasurer of the Astronomical Society of Kansas City, ASKC. Boy, I blew it. ASKC, which is, how old's the club?
We are having our 100th anniversary.
100th anniversary this year. That's incredible. They currently operate an observatory southwest of Kansas City, or Overland Park, Kansas City, out in Kansas at Lewisburg, Kansas. And they had some exciting news. If you were with me a few minutes ago, I interviewed Donna Syed, who mentioned that they have purchased a piece of ground. They're going to be working on the creating a new observatory. Right. Alan, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then tell us about that project.
Sure. Thanks, Kent. Yeah, I'm a member of the Astronomical Society of Kansas City since 2011, I think, if I remember right. And I've been on the board for a number of years and currently treasurer of the organization and deeply involved in our observatory relocation or new build project. It's been an ongoing project in the club for 13 or 14 years now, pretty much since I've been a member of the club and been involved in it.
So what drew you into the club?
I've always had an interest in astronomy since I was a little kid. I built a telescope when I was in high school and ground and polished my own mirror and the whole bit back when I was in high school and in college. And then I kind of dropped out of the hobby for a while and got back into it more recently and found ASKC and joined up, and it's been a ride since then.
And got your arm twisted into being treasurer.
Yeah.
It's always the way it goes, although it probably didn't take much arm twisting to get you to agree to do it.
Our previous treasurer was kind of burned out on that job and twisted my arm and said, I need a replacement.
And here you are. So, and with that job came the responsibility for trying to manage the funds to buy a piece of property, and that has come to fruition now. Talk about that a little bit more.
Well, we spent a long time trying to find a suitable piece of property to relocate our current observatory. Our current location is in a semi-rural area outside of Kansas City, but light pollution is encroaching and making it so that it's fairly unusable a good part of the year due to surrounding ball fields that are well lit at night. So we've spent 13 or 14 years trying to find a really good piece of property where we could relocate. And we finally found a piece of ground and 19 and a half acres further south of the current location, and put in an offer on the land, and now we own it.
So how'd you go about raising the money for that? Because it wasn't, I mean, it wasn't a vast sum of money, but
No,
it's more money than my club has and probably ever will have.
yeah.
So how did you go about
Well,
doing that?
we had been collecting money internally within our club for quite a long time, anticipating this need. And it was the money for the land was raised almost entirely with internal contributions within our organization. We have about 700 members in our club right now, so we do have a little bit of resource there. But we've spent most of our savings on that piece of property. We paid cash for it, and so now the next step will be to actually start constructing something on that property, and the fundraising effort starts all over again.
So I'm sitting here actually watching the ASKC booth is directly across and almost behind the camera. And there's a video playing right now of the site. It looks like it has a creek. There's a nice drone shot going across. Looks like there's a creek that goes across it. Does that worry y'all at all for the possibility of ground fog and dew, or is it a seasonal creek?
It's seasonal. It's dry most of the time. There's only water there, after a rainstorm or
Okay,
whatnot. So yeah, and we'll actually take advantage of it because there's tree lines along both banks of the creek, and we'll probably be putting our parking lot for our public access on the opposite side of the creek from where the observatory is.
Brilliant.
So the trees will shield
Mhm.
the cars coming and going.
Provide a
hopefully.
natural light break.
Right.
Plant cedar trees.
Yeah,
I
we'll,
mean,
we'll probably be planting more trees in there, and
from looking at it, looks like it's mostly mixed oaks.
it's
Mixed
a
oak
mix
hardwood.
of oaks and weed trees right
Yeah.
now.
Well, any tree is better than no tree when you
Well,
in the
yeah,
summertime because
exactly.
it's leaves. So what do you like to do in astronomy?
Well, I got interested in astronomy, and I got into planetary imaging, actually, kind of a specialty, because it was something I could do from my own backyard. I didn't need dark skies, so I got into doing imaging of the planets and into the stacking process. I actually started out with film photography back in the day, and now I'm doing stacking, imaging of planets, and it's its own special niche in astrophotography that's a little different than deep sky imaging.
There's all sorts of niches in astrophotography. And that's the beautiful part of the hobby. You don't get shoved into, you have to be visual, or you have to do this kind of astrophotography, or you have to do this. There's room under this tent for everybody.
Right.
And we're seeing a lot more people interested in astronomy with the rise of the so-called smart telescopes,
Sure.
which those make even easier than ever before to do astrophotography,
Right.
because that's what all those rigs are astrophotography rigs. I have one and I really enjoy producing it. I don't like the processing at the computer, and this takes away that part of it as well. I can download them and process them like you do if I want to, but I choose not to.
Right.
And no one holds it against me for the most part. So anyway, hey, Scott, behind us right here, I set up from the last broadcast we had, I set up a telescope. That's an
Right.
Explore Scientific Essential Series 127 millimeter telescope on our
Sure.
go-to mount, the Exos 2 GT PMC8. And it is one of the door prizes for the National Young Astronomers Award, which we sponsor. Talk about that a little bit, Scott,
Okay,
and
all
what that
right.
means.
So the National Young Astronomers Award got started, gosh, I think over 20 years ago. I was at the first award for that when I was working with Mead Instruments. And we supported that program because we believed in getting more youth in astronomy. Now, the so-called graying of the hobby, which everybody seems to complain about, is actually a very natural part of astronomy. We have to remember that Galileo himself, who gave the first public star party with a telescope, was 45. okay, when he did this. So he was probably already graying himself, okay, at the time. It is, what we see as telescope manufacturers is we see youth and very interested in the stars. They might get a small telescope to start off with, like a department store telescope. Then they go off to junior high, high school, college. They're starting to learn their path to fitting in society and figuring out their career. Then they might start a family, okay, and start establishing that career. And they go through that whole process. So they simply don't have the time, and they have the inclination, but they don't have the time, and they probably don't have the discretionary income that it takes to buy a nice rig, okay? They can join something like the Astronomical Society of Kansas City because that group has an incredible outreach program. They're going to be inviting family members to come in and get access to a big telescope. And, with this new acquisition of the land and everything, that's going to happen even more. So we're real happy to support the Astronomical League and all these clubs that are part of it, part of that umbrella. But the National Young Astronomers Award is meant to foster exceptional high school kids that are very interested in science. They work with they present a program where they are going to do research. Past winners have included boys and girls that do things like measure the radial velocity of galaxies and the search for dark matter. I mean, they're really tough, hardcore science programs that border on what professional research is all about. So every year a winner is selected. From our side, we support the program with some money, and we also support it with a 5-inch ED-apo refractor that hopefully will continue to feed that interest in astronomy.
Scott, you mentioned this department store telescopes, and I don't know, you've talked about this before, on broadcast, but I'm sitting here because of a department store telescope a very young 10-year-old Scott Roberts got, and it was what, a 40-inch refractor, or excuse me, 40 millimeter refractor. Slightly
I
different.
wish it was a 40-inch refractor like the one at Yerkes.
In fact,
but no,
they're behind you.
Yeah, you can see it in the background there. It's that little, let me see if I can get my finger down there, okay?
It's a little white one.
It's the little white one right there.
there.
Okay, so, but a little 40 millimeter Kmart. It still has the Kmart sticker on it and all the rest of it. Got it when I was 10 years old in 1970. Okay, so I was absolutely thrilled. And yeah, a little telescope like that can take you a long way. And so I would imagine many club members have a similar story. Their first telescope, maybe they're a little shy to talk about it or whatever, but these little telescopes do get people interested, and but the real interest lies within the person, and not so much the equipment. And so having the access to the tools is wonderful. Having access to an astronomy club with experienced amateur astronomers can take you way, way further. And then, I have yet to meet an amateur astronomer who does not like to share their equipment, so you join up with the Astronomical Society of Kansas City, you go to some of their events, you join, you go to some of their star parties, and you can start a lifelong voyage. It just never stops. So it's so cool.
All right. Well, Scott, thanks. We're going to go ahead and shut this down for this one. Alan?
There's a
yes,
question, though. There's
a question.
From
All right.
Connor Bradley.
Hi, Connor.
Wants to know, we already know your thoughts on smart telescopes, Kent, but I don't know if Mr. Lehman here has had any experience with them.
So what's your experience? Any
Or
experience with
thoughts?
or thoughts
What are
on
your
smart
thoughts about
telescopes?
smart telescopes in general?
I think they're a great introduction to the hobby for those who have the patience to figure out how to actually use one and get good results out of it. They're smart telescopes, but they do still take.
They're easier.
They're definitely easier. They do still take some knowledge and some amount of work to get good images out of them, but you can do
That's
a
true.
lot with one of those if you take the time to learn how to use it well.
You know, it used to be, my dad tells the story of having to change his own car tires.
Yeah,
You know, told that story from in the 30s and 40s.
right.
You don't have to change your own car tire anymore. And,
You don't.
you know, and that's part of the natural progression. We have it easier than the people before us because they didn't have go-to telescopes. They had to star
Right.
hop. They had to memorize
Yeah.
and use star charts.
And you don't have to do that with.
You don't have to do that.
right, Ed.
We don't have to do it with go-tos. We still can star hop if we want to,
Yeah.
but this is just part of that natural progression
It
of the
is
hobby.
for sure, definitely, and they're a great innovation.
Yeah. So, hi, Connor. Connor's a social media friend, lives in the UK. Asks
Okay.
me all sorts of questions, and I love his questions. He challenges me to come up with answers that I know or to look up and help him on his journey through astronomy and astrophotography as well. So, Connor, thanks for
Connor
watching.
says he has a C star. That's the
He just got a
ZWO,
C-star.
smart telescope, and he says he loves it. So
Yeah.
They're great.
you'll have
Yep.
to share some images with us sometimes, Connor. So thank you. Okay, well, then I guess this kind of wraps up this moment here with at the Astronomical League Conference. We'll be back with more. Kent, thank you, and Alan, thank you very much.
Thank
man.
you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate the time.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So as I said, stay tuned for more presentations and lectures. We are live from the Astronomical League Conference in Overland Park, Kansas. And it's going to be a fascinating few days here.